Hello, everyone, and welcome again to our final session of Marketing May. My name is Amanda. I am our marketing director here at State Listings. So today's topic, we're going to be covering how to become a subject matter expert and how to market yourself as that. The first step to becoming a subject matter expert is figuring out who your ideal customer is. When I ask people this, I get a lot of answers like, well, I can sell to anyone. I can sell anybody's home. And that's, of course, true. We know that a lot of our users and our viewers here are real estate pros who could absolutely sell any listing, make it work. And we never suggest turning away business unless it wasn't a good idea for you. However, this isn't about turning away business or giving up on other sales. This is about figuring out who to focus on. By showing yourself to be an expert in your field, you can increase your referrals, you can win more listing appointments, and you can stay top of mind when friends of your former clients need an agent. So figuring out your ideal customer is all about figuring out who to spend most of your energy on and who you are the best fit for, so that you're not constantly spending your time going after leads who aren't going to pick you because you are not the best fit for them. So here's why this matters. Homes.com did some great research, I believe earlier last year, where they focused on qualities that Generation Z want in a real estate agent. And they noted in their research that a lot of what Gen Z wants is more similar than we'd expect to older generations. I'm not going to include the research for those as well here because frankly, we don't need to go through 5 different slides. So I just wanted to bring this in to show you what Gen Zers want is an agent who understands what they want, who understands the local market, and has experience. That takes up more than 50% of the pie chart on this page. And by focusing in on who your ideal customer is, and by making sure that you're marketing to them and you're showing your subject matter expertise to them, you can hit all 3 of those points. So what is your niche? It's important to first figure out what your niche is. A few questions to start with. Do I have a specific life experience that can help me relate to potential customers and clients? For example, one of our close family friends is a veteran who's had to move for work fairly frequently. There are so many unique challenges that Army families face when they're moving. And if you yourself are a veteran, or if you have close friends and family who are veterans, you understand those unique challenges in a way that others couldn't. So by promoting yourself that way, you're able to sort of focus in on that niche. In addition, I saw some great content from a real estate agent who's a single mom. And because of that, she understood the balancing act that moms and other single parents faced when they were going through a home search process. And she was able to better market to them. If that doesn't work out for you, you can try to figure out what kind of sale that you've been the most successful with in the past. So a lot of you mentioned that you've worked with senior citizens in the past. So those may be folks who have been buying and selling at the same time, especially if they were longtime homeowners. They may have been downsizing, which is a big balancing act of figuring out how to find a home that still has all the amenities you're looking for, what to do with any leftover belongings that might not move to the new place. And it takes someone who really understands that kind of sale to do well. In addition, short sales aren't for everyone because they can require a lot more paperwork. They require a lot of really well-documented following up with the bank and with your clients. But if you efficiently help sellers through that, chances are you are going to get a lot of referrals from them if you're able to efficiently navigate a pretty difficult process. So think about if there are any special sales circumstances that you've been helpful with in the past. In addition, it's important to ask yourself where you have the most success. It's okay to get really granular here. For example, I worked with an agent who had 4 or so sales that went really successfully in one neighborhood. So of course she still focused on other areas, but for that specific neighborhood, she made sure to position herself as the agent of choice for that neighborhood, which included sending special mail to them, included working on neighborhood message boards, just showing off like, hey, I have been the most successful agent at getting high prices and quick sales for this neighborhood. So ask yourself where you're doing the best. And finally, Ask yourself if you've worked with any special property types. For example, here at the MLS, we accept vacant land listings, and selling 100 acres of land that might be good for hunting, camping, building is completely different than selling a 2,000 square foot home in a suburb. Sellers will feel more at ease with a specialist. And if you've worked with those property types in the past, especially if you don't see a lot of other specialists in that type in your area, it's really important to publicize that. In addition, properties like co-ops or commercial listings have a lot more rules to them than, as I mentioned, that 2,000 square foot home in a suburb. So if you have experience working with co-ops, if you can explain the process to new buyers who may not have dealt with a co-op board or application before, you're more likely to get more referrals, as they probably have first-time co-op buyer friends who are looking for an agent. Now that you've figured out your niche, it's time to create a buyer persona. So this is where I delve a little bit deeper into some typical marketing lingo that you may not get in more traditional webinars. A buyer persona is a fictitious representation of your ideal customer. You create a buyer persona and ask yourself a whole list of questions about them to really flesh them out as a person to help you understand the best way that you can reach your target audience. A buyer persona will include information like their age, their lifestyle, their career, their goals, and any challenges that they face. So some questions to ask yourself when you're creating a buyer persona include who they are. That includes how old they are, what industry they work in, what their day-to-day lifestyle is like, what they read, watch, and listen to, and where they're spending their time online. From that, you want to figure out what they care about, what they're worried about the home buying process or home selling process, and how you can solve those problems for them. It can also help a lot to give them a name. So for example, if we have restaurant owner Rebecca, who owns a small family-owned business and is looking to purchase a larger, more commercial space as she expands. She may read cooking publications. She may listen to cooking podcasts. She may be spending her time on Facebook, building her business page on there, as well as, depending on the type of restaurant, maybe she's working on an Instagram, just trying to get some photos of her beautiful restaurant out there. She's probably concerned about committing to a larger space for a growing business, as well as the growing pains that come along with that. And if you're a really skilled commercial real estate agent who's worked with restaurant owners before, you can likely allay a lot of those fears. Once you have your persona, you're able to figure out where your ideal buyer is most likely to see any ads and content. So like I mentioned, if we go back to Rebecca, as I mentioned, she spends a lot of time on Facebook, maybe on Instagram. So you'd want to focus any marketing on there. In addition, if she reads those cooking publications, cooking blogs, podcasts, things like that, when we talk a little bit later about creating content to be the subject matter expert, those are the kind of publications you'd want to reach out to offer to be a guest blogger, to offer to be an expert for any articles that they're working on, to make sure that she sees you as integrated with the things that she cares about. So how do we do that? The first content creation that a lot of people go to is creating a blog. To a lot of folks, blogging can look like a pretty big commitment, especially because it's so important to be consistent. So let's talk about the payoff. As we've discussed, and as is the point of today's presentation, blogging is a great way to be a subject matter expert. In addition, by creating content that solves problems for your ideal client, you're creating the content that they'll find when they search for the answers to their problems. This means that they come to you. This method of marketing is called the inbound method. It means that rather than interruptive marketing like placing ads, cold calling, or cold emailing, your ideal customers are finding you rather than you reaching out. This can warm up your cold calling, meaning your first phone call, rather than being a cold call, is reaching out to someone who you know has been spending time on your blog, who you know is interested in the kind of information you have to provide. In addition, you build your value to them by providing answers to your ideal customers' questions without asking anything from them in return. Of course, as you mentioned, you may eventually reach out to them about representing them in a transaction. However, at face value, when you write a blog, you are just providing a resource. Finally, through guest blogging, you're able to expand your reach and find people who may not have visited your blog on their own, but may find you elsewhere, and you're able to grow your network. There are thousands and thousands upon blogs about blogging out there, but here are my easy to digest, quick tips that'll really get you started. The first one is to keep it informational. It's really, really tempting, especially when you are so good at what you're writing about, to just advertise yourself and talk about how great you are at it. Unfortunately, in a blog, your ideal customer is looking for information. So any self-promotion will distract from your message and will alienate readers. It's okay at the end to put a short, more promotional about you and to include your name and your site at the beginning of your article. However, I largely try to avoid advertising language in the middle of the blog. An exemption from this is any press releases or other announcements. For example, an agent that I've worked with was recently in a local publication, which is actually the cover story. And that's something you should absolutely share with the world, because that's not pushing yourself for no reason. You're publicizing an award you've received or some big announcements coming to your site. You also want to stay focused. Content that performs really well is narrow content that answers one very specific question that your ideal client has. They get more views and more readers complete the article rather than bouncing off of it. If the readers just look at that one article, don't stay on very long, don't finish, and just move to another page, that's what Google considers a bounce, and it'll actually negatively affect your site and rankings. Here at the MLS, we keep our articles between about 500 to 1,500 words in length, depending on the topic. And we'll talk, if you have more to say than that about a pretty narrow topic, or you'd like to cover a broader topic in a more cohesive way, we'll talk about educational guides in just a minute. Finally, be positive. Make sure you're keeping the tone of your article upbeat, informational, like you're sharing insider tricks. No one wants to be shamed or yelled at for making mistakes. Articles including, the 5 biggest mistakes you made tend to turn readers off. Things like 5 mistakes to avoid may perform a little bit better, but overall, I'd phrase it something like 5 insider tricks to learn about before purchasing your first home, for example. Next, we're going to talk about guest blogging. If you don't have the time to commit to blogging regularly, that is completely understandable. Here at the MLS, we put out 2 blog posts a week, and the way that we're able to do that is that on top of content that we produce ourselves, we are also open to guest bloggers. When you guest blog, usually you will offer your expertise for free to another publication in exchange for a byline, a link back to your website, and maybe a 2 to 4 sentence about the author section at the end of the blog. When it comes to where to reach out to, make sure that you think outside the box. You don't need to contribute to just real estate blogs because, as we mentioned before, your ideal customer probably isn't spending all of their time on those real estate blogs. So think about your ideal customer and all of the work we just did on your buyer persona, figuring out where they spend time online. For example, if you're interested in working with first-time home buyers, there are blogs out there. I believe one of them is called NerdWallet. There are plenty of beginner investing or financial advice blogs, and especially a lot of podcasts that are teaching folks who are maybe millennials or members of Gen Z, or even older folks who just haven't had this experience before about how to manage their money. So that could be a great option for those of you who mentioned you like working with first-time home buyers. Reach out to these sites that provide financial advice for beginners and offer to talk about what the home buying process is like and how a licensed real estate agent can help. As I mentioned before, with other niches, like if you work with a lot of veterans, if you work with single parents, or if you have a college town and you find that a lot of parents of college students will buy an apartment for their child in town to use while they're in college and invest that way, blogs like those can help you reach your target audience. For the buyer persona we mentioned before, for restaurant owner Rebecca, podcasts, blogs, or even written publications about running a restaurant are likely where you're most able to reach her. A few topic ideas. If you're looking for a more general publication, for example, a local newspaper, you could talk about the state of the real estate market. For that investing beginners blog I talked about, talking about basic real estate terms would be really helpful. As we mentioned, when you're creating your buyer persona, you want to think about what challenges your buyer persona is facing when they make a real estate sale or purchase. So you could write about one like very specific granular problem so that when they search how to solve X problem, your article is what they find. Alternatively, if you're less of a copywriter, you could offer to give an interview to the blog owner and let them have a bit more control over the actual writing of the article. Before I move on, I did want to mention that New York State MLS and MyStateMLS, like I said, we have a blog where we publish twice a week and we do accept guest posts. You're able to reach out to us at any time. My email will be at the end of the article. We accept well-written articles that have not been posted anywhere else on the internet between 500 to 1,500 words on topics that we haven't recently covered on our blog. Finally, if you have more to say than one specific article, it might be a good idea for you to create a downloadable guide. And we'll be sharing one that we created a bit later in this presentation. So a downloadable guide is usually a short ebook between 25 to 30 pages that covers a topic more in depth or covers a more broad topic. When I say that it's an ebook, don't worry if you're not a graphic designer. A trick that I've used in the past when I'm a bit more low on time and can't maybe fully design, open up Adobe InDesign to make a fully illustrated ebook, something that I'll do is create it all in PowerPoint and then save that as a PDF. And there are a whole bunch of sites out there, including HubSpot, which I've mentioned before, HUB as in boy, Spot, SPOT, has a whole downloadable resource that's full of templates you can use to make an ebook. You can then offer this on your website as a free resource for readers who subscribe to your email list, or you can just present the link right on your website. In addition, depending on what kind of site you have and what CRM you use, you may be able to create a form on your website that users can fill out. This can help you boost your email list. Again, work on that inbound marketing so your leads are coming directly to you, and find your ideal customer and help solve their problems. Our next big content creation giant is video. In this presentation, I'm going to go beyond virtual tours. We've discussed virtual tours and virtual open houses in several of our previous sessions, so we're going to discuss more marketing yourself rather than your listings. That being said, a well-made virtual tour can absolutely market you as a listing agent as well, so it's really, really useful to learn a bit more about those. If you are interested, I really suggest checking out our tips from our previous sessions. We focused quite heavily on them, so for time's sake, I'm not going to review today. However, here's that downloadable guide I talked about. If you would like to learn more about taking and editing virtual tours, we did create an entire guide on how to do this, and Dave will be putting the link to download this guide below. The remote agent guide covers tips about staging the home, tips about finding the best lighting, and then covers how to then add music to the video and edit it right in YouTube, as well as recommendations if you'd like to get a little more in depth with your video editing. Let's talk about why video. The most important thing is that they're reusable. A video you can post to YouTube, Facebook, Instagram if it's under a minute, and you can send them in emails as well. You can really repurpose the same piece of content a lot more than you can with written content. I mentioned that you can include the link to them in emails, and I highly recommend doing so because studies have shown that emails with video in the title have better open rates and click-through rates than their counterparts that do not. In addition, video receives better engagement, which means more people like it, more people comment on it, more people use Facebook reactions than photo or text content. And because social media sites want people to engage more with content, think about it, they want you to spend as much time on their site as possible. They're more likely to promote video content than photo content, and especially more than text content. If you're intimidated by video, you're definitely not alone. I know a lot of agents put off making videos because they think they need expensive equipment or lighting to be successful, but that's frankly untrue. If your information is good and your writing is well put together, you don't need a professional editing team. Some of the best video content I've seen coming from agents has come from one agent with a phone or a webcam, but discussing really comprehensively a pretty complicated topic. So we're all stuck at home right now. How do we make videos? The top things that you need to create a good video, are a tripod or a stable surface to prop up your phone, or a webcam that's positioned well on your computer. Your viewers can't focus on a video if they're getting motion sick because your hand is shaking, because you're moving around. So find a good place to prop up your phone before you start shooting. In addition, you may see when you see celebrities taking pictures on Instagram, they're usually holding up the phone and shooting into a mirror. And that's because the back camera on your phone generally has a much higher resolution and a much more flattering resolution than the front camera of your phone. So try setting up your phone so that you are using and speaking into the back camera when you're taking a video. In addition, while I mentioned that you don't need expensive lighting equipment, good lighting is really important when you're taking a video. When I'm taking videos, I use a really inexpensive ring light that has a phone holder attached to it. So there's my tripod and there's my lighting all in one, and it was under $30 from Amazon. So it also has different settings on it that I honestly don't use that much. There are probably a lot more simple ones that you can find out there. In addition, the sun is free. When you're working in your office, just spend a day taking note of when the best lighting is, and make sure you shoot your video near a window at that time. And finally, you'll need an engaging topic, which I know is why many of you mentioned you haven't made video content yet. So here are some of our top tips of the kinds of videos you can make. The first one is demos and tutorials, which can explain how to do something or how to use a product. These are a great way to establish yourself as the expert and can be a trusted source of information for any potential clients. In addition, some of you mentioned being a bit camera shy. If there's something that you can explain how to do that involves your computer, you could just screen record and speak into a microphone so that your face doesn't even have to be on camera. Potential topics include tips on staging a home. If you really love staging your clients' homes before open houses and you know how to make them look really inviting, you could go through how you stage a room, and you can shoot that in your own home with your phone propped up on your fireplace mantle. You can also include how to do small home improvements that increase the curb appeal of your home, like removing a popcorn ceiling or small upgrades that you can do to your landscaping in your front yard. Finally, like I mentioned, if you wanted to use a topic that you could screen record, you could include how to do minor photo enhancements on listing photos. Another type of video content we love are explainer videos. Explainer videos give a brief rundown explaining a concept. This is really great for gaining the trust of those first-time buyers and sellers because they can demystify the home buying and selling process. And they can especially be easy for you. Unlike demos that may require a bit more work or some research, you can probably easily rattle off a 2-minute digestible explanation of a simple real estate topic that buyers and sellers might not understand. You can choose a topic like down payments, different types of loans or mortgages, or why sellers pay listing agents a commission and why that's important. These explanations are really appreciated by new home buyers and sellers and are extremely shareable. So you never know which of these could go viral. I believe when we talked about this, Dave was showing there is a dad on YouTube. I believe the channel is called Dad, How Do I? And it shares those little home improvements that your dad used to do that you might not remember, might not have gotten the chance to ask him. And this guy gets millions of views on his videos just briefly explaining short concepts, because this is what folks are looking for. Demos and explainers work great on YouTube because it's the how-to capital of the internet. As I mentioned in a previous session, YouTube is the second largest search engine after Google because folks are constantly looking there for demos on how to do different home projects or solve other problems that they're having. Finally, we have expert Q&As. These are generally slightly longer videos than demos and explainers. And if you need an example, you can check out our live streams on Facebook. And something that we love to do is have folks who are experts in other related fields come onto our live stream, and then Dave will interview them about their expertise. Make sure that you're preparing questions for them ahead of time and consider using Facebook Live or a webinar service like GoToWebinar, which we're using right now, so that your audience can also ask their questions during the presentation. This is a great way to provide additional expertise for your ideal buyer. And in addition, it's a great way to strengthen business relationships with the experts you bring on. Some great potential guests include agents who have a different specialization from you. So if you tend to work with folks who are already homeowners, someone who works with a first-time buyer could be a great guest for you. Or if you are that agent that works with first-time home buyers, having a mortgage loan originator on who can talk a bit about the process of getting approved, what a sale looks like with you, could be a great way to help even further demystify that first-time home buying process. In addition, depending, you may need to work a bit more with them on the questions and the content ahead of time, but a lawyer you work with frequently who can provide information to your audience could be a great resource as well. So the final way of being the expert is to get involved. As a real estate agent, you want to be the local expert. Like we mentioned, you can even get granular down to the neighborhood. Your ideal client is looking for someone who is an expert in the area that they're buying and selling, and you need to make sure that they know that you are that expert. Ways you can do that, even from home, include promoting local businesses. I know we've talked here before about a post that my coworker Dave made on his page talking about some chicken wings he was really excited to get for takeout. And that's one way to show that you are a local expert and show that you care about other businesses in your community. You should also get involved in community events. This goes back to what is your buyer persona's lifestyle? So where are they spending their time and how can you be there for them? How can you get familiar with your buyer so that you're top of mind when they're ready to buy or sell? And if you're not able to be there in person, or if you'd like to commit a bit more, you can also sponsor events that your ideal customer would attend. So for example, here we work with a lot of auctioneers that aren't better served by other MLSs because we have a lot of auction specific fields. So we make sure that we attend auction events and we sponsor auction events. So that's how we as the MLS try to reach our ideal buyer. Thank you all so much for watching and thank you for joining us. As I mentioned, this is our final session of Marketing May. However, it is definitely not our final webinar. If you're interested in more information, my email is on the screen right now. You're welcome to shoot me a message, or you can call our number on the screen, 888-769-7657, request to speak with Amanda or Dave, and we'd be happy to help you. Thank you so much for joining us. Bye.